Yes.
So my next question for you, my next curiosity, Naham, is what is it like? You have family in the West Bank. What
Yes,
is
I
it
do.
like for you to be outside and to still have family there?
So I have family in West Bank, aunts, uncles, cousins, extended family. Like I have so much in West Bank. For us, before social media and the internet, it was very difficult to even keep in touch. If you lived in countries where they didn't have a relationship with Israel, you couldn't just pick up the phone and call them. And then they were deprived even of like technology. It was very hard to like one person in the town or two would have phones and everyone would come and let's say come to my grandfather's house and try to, use the phone. But then later on with internet and social media, it got easier to keep in touch, but it also was very painful because you're more up to date in what's happening to them. So for years and years, way before October 7th, they were enduring so much injustice and hardship, and it was very systematic and like done consistently to them. So from the little thing of checkpoint after checkpoint. So each city in West Bank has little towns that follow this city. So let's say let me give you an example. Let's say the city of Jenin. They have little towns around them like Arabe, Yabad. They have a lot of towns, but all of them follow this city. Um, so, if you want to move between this town and go to downtown, like the main city, you get 3, 4 checkpoints. And a lot of the times when they say goodbye to one another just to go for that trip, sometimes they say like, just in case I don't come back, I love you, because sometimes they get shot at because a soldier suspected that this car is not driving at the right speed, or there are these little things because of the checkpoint after checkpoint, even within towns that follow that same that follow that main city. And then they have the night visits. So they get visits from, I call them visits, but they're anything but very, very unpleasant. They come in, they break down your door, come in because they think your house has a good vantage point for someone that they want to be watching or someone that they want to snipe. And they don't care, if you have elderly. The women actually started to sleep with the prayer clothes, which is not like Palestinian heritage clothing, but because at any moment they can enter their homes. Just like in Gaza, when you see a house that has been bombed and the woman comes out and she's wearing that, she's not wearing it because, she had time to go and get it. No, they're constantly wearing that because at any moment they can get bombed, and she wants to keep her modesty even in that situation. And
Okay,
the
okay.
same in West Bank, they want to keep their modesty. She can't be in her PJs or whatever she wants to wear. She puts it on in case they come, and they can come at any night. So they endure a lot of these night visits, and then every few months they have something called operations to mow the lawn. So they come in and the soldiers come in and they end up like they go to a certain area in the city, let's say in Tul Karam or in Ramallah, or Ramallah now not as much, just the neighboring towns, but especially like Tul Karam and these cities. They come in and they choose an area and they just completely destroy that street and kill a few kids, a few teenagers, and get out. And that way they mowed the lawn. They ensure that, they continue to exert this this power that they have over the West Bank. And then they have to also endure settlers. So you have the settlers that are sent to West Bank, and this is when we spoke about like Palestinians compromising and saying, okay, we'll get our state, you get yours, leave us alone. It was not implemented because Israel kept on sending settlers to live amongst the Palestinians. But how it's done is, so they'd go to a city, and the highest area, they would start a compound over there, and it will be heavily guarded. And then usually the settlers that end up getting sent there or assigned that area are two types. They're either fanatically in their religion, or they're very uneducated. And by doing that, they kill two birds with one stone. They get to get rid of them and not have them in the big Israeli cities, and which will not look good on their branding.
Which will not taint, which will
It
not taint them.
or these that are extremely religious, or these that are not very educated.
And keep making them look really modern in the cities.
Exactly, and more European, and
and
at the same time, these settlers, because of their background, end up terrorizing the Palestinians. And whenever they do so, they do so, and they have protection of their army.
Of the army, exactly.
Yeah. So this situation for them, it was like, great, we have these constantly going in and smashing someone's window, or attacking a kid, or burning a field, and we go in every now and then and do our like, oh, we're in control here, we're the boss. So
and also, I think what's important to mention, I know I keep saying that a lot because this is something that really struck me when I went, is how young the soldiers are.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you about
because
that.
Because
when I visited, it was shocking to me too.
And that was it. It was I just remember looking and thinking, you're no older than my niece and nephew. You're so
and imagine
young.
being a fellow teenager and meeting another teenager. And I'll tell you about that for sure. But with the situation in the West Bank after October 7th, it got way worse for them. So instead of mowing the lawn, of coming and destroying that one street, they come in and destroy the entire city, all the infrastructure. They cut out water, electricity, communication. They break down shops. People are their livelihoods, they're unable to make ends meet. So the last month, we lost contact with my family for 9 whole days, because they happened to be in one of the cities that they came into and were
aggressively invading.
Destroying. And when we did, after those 9 days, and the worry, like, are they okay, what happened, when we spoke to them, they said that they were all stuck in one area of the house that's like under the stairs, for 9 days. They didn't have water, electricity, communication. They had to even think about, if you really needed the bathroom, or you can wait just to conserve water, or to like stay safe for just a few minutes longer. The little children, my cousin's kids, when I ask about the kids, they would say things like, they were shaking, they have a stare as if they are looking into the void. They say things like, I don't want to stay at home, can you take me to nursery? I want to stay there and sleep there. Because with the innocence of children, they thought that
think it's safer.
My home is not the safe one. Nursery, like, we're good in nursery. So this is the situation of people in West Bank, and even with what has been happening and me being from West Bank, but what was happening in Gaza was so much bigger that, with everything that we are sharing and talking about, we're talking a lot about Gaza, and we're like, it's okay, like West Bank, I mean, it's horrible, but like it's not as bad as, and we're trying to like shed more light on Gaza and say, West Bank, we can't complain because at least in West Bank they're getting deprived of these things for a few days, but in Gaza it's like it's been we're close to a year. So
and it's apocalyptic.
yeah, so it's these things for us. Now, my personal visit was the point where I changed forever. Like that was the point that I was like, I'm not the same. I was in 11th grade, 16, going on to 17. My mom wanted to try her luck and have me and my siblings, just her and me and the rest of my siblings, go for a visit. So we had to go through the crossing because she's from West Bank. Uh,
Can I just
were
also say here, not everyone can travel through Tel Aviv airport.
no,
Yeah.
like no way, no
So
way.
Palestinians,
Mostly have to go through the crossing.
depending on, yeah,
Which
depending on
type
where
you
they
are.
live, which type you are, depending where you live in the world, because like say you're living in the States or Canada or somewhere in Europe, you can travel through Tel Aviv. But like a lot of Palestinians in the diaspora cannot go through that airport and have to cross through Jordan.
Yes. And even like going, let's say somebody in Gaza wants to visit somebody in West Bank, they have to apply for permission, and 9 out of 10 times they will get a no. And that's like being very nice about it. And then if you are from the ones that went to neighboring Arab countries like Lebanon, Syria, or you hold refugee status in Jordan, you're not allowed to go on that crossing, on that border. And all of these, I always like to stress that it is just chance and that spur of the moment decision. When I say that, oh, I'm lucky from West Bank, I happen to be from West Bank. If I was born, it's just chance. It's not something that is planned, or it was intentional and they sat and planned and there was a benefit for them. No. So for me, I was in 11th grade, I was a teenager, and we went on that crossing. So, and it was 1998, the last time that I went. And again, context, we did not have, September 11 hadn't happened yet. It happened in 2001. So in my world, if I go to an airport or I'm traveling from one country to the next, I take a bottle of water and I get out. It stays with me in the airport, and we get to the airplane and we get to our next destination with that same bottle of water that I took from my home. We didn't have to take off our shoes. There was none of this fluids. So that was the world
Screening.
I was coming from. And when we got to the crossing, first of all, it was bus after bus after bus, and if you, again, that river, that bridge that we're crossing, I can walk. It didn't even look like a river to me. It looked like a stream. Okay, like that's how small it was. So I couldn't understand, like we're spending hours and hours on this bus, and then they tell us go down, walk, and go to the next one, and then there's one building and that building, and so what would have been a 1 hour car ride in a normal world took us 17 hours.
And
And
were you prepared? Like, did your mom have to prepare you for this?
no, she
Did you
she
have the
didn't.
conversation before you traveled?
No, she the only thing that she had told us was, comply, listen to me. Uh, but I don't know. Like, I always think about that. Like, I wasn't prepared and she didn't say
Mhm.
anything. Maybe for her, that's her world. That's normal. Like, she didn't feel that this is the way it is when I go and I visit my family.
Yeah, or also, you know how before we send kids to kindergarten or their first day of school, you don't want to create more stress beforehand. So
Or
you also
fear. Yeah.
or fear, so you don't talk about it too much so that you're not creating that anxiety in the child beforehand.
Yes. So for
Mhm.
us, it was building to building, bus to bus, pay a fee here, pay a fee there. And then there were things like you have to be strip searched. And I looked around and they were all teenagers. They were just like me, 16, 17, guys and girls. And they
The
were all in
soldiers.
the soldiers, yes. And they were all in army gear. They had their big guns. And I was looking and I found it so strange. Like how are all these teenagers like me holding these guns and they're responsible for what's happening over here. So and then one core memory for me was at one point one of the girls, the soldiers with the big gun, comes to my mom and she says, all of you go into that room and you take off your clothes and you're going to be searched. And my little brother, through the tantrum of tantrums, because he was like, why are you asking me to take off my clothes? And, my mom wasn't allowed to console him. They kind of like let him have his tantrum and like, no, you're gonna take off your clothes. And then I could see that my brother was very confused because you're a mom, you don't take off your clothes, and especially like if you're not on the beach, if you're not on the pool, you're
Hmm.
wearing your full attire, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And
And from birth, we're teaching our children body autonomy.
exactly. And then
Hmm.
he's seeing that all these people or all these soldiers look like his sister, his older sister, and they are exerting power over his mother and making him do something that his mother doesn't allow. But all of a sudden, this is allowed. So I remember I felt so much pain for my brother, and then looking at my mother and seeing her also in pain that she has to be forced to allow this. And then there were also subtle things like I'd look around and I saw an elderly man. And in our culture, our elderly are considered like a blessing and they're borderline holy. We're raised like, there's a lot of respect for them and a lot of,
Hmm. Hmm.
their wisdom and their years.
Hmm.
And he was wearing his الحطة الكوفية on his head, our the national dress of
Our traditional
Palestinians, our
clothing.
traditional
Yeah.
dress. And one of the kid soldiers tells him, you need to take that off and you need to take off your shoes so that they can go through the machine. And then he puts his hatta and then he brings the soldier brings his shoe and puts it on top of his hatta. And I saw that elderly man, he was so hurt, his head down, and he couldn't even tell off these kids, and they were humiliating him. So, it was all these little things that I was observing, and I was very confused. Like I knew that, there's Palestine is occupied, and I've heard all the stories from my parents, but how is this allowed? And again, they're my age and they have all this power.
Hmm.
And then,
And
you
again,
know,
you can't know it until you see it for yourself.
until you experience
Hmm.
it. And
Hmm.
then, after all these hours, we get on the final bus and they drop us off at an area. And again, I remember it so clearly because all these are core memories. And it had these little hills that were rocky, and in between two little hills or mini mountains, and it was sandy, and all our luggage was thrown around, just, and people were scrambling to go and find their belongings. So I was so humiliated. I was so shocked at, like, why are they treating me so as if I'm not a person, as if I'm, and in some situations, some animals are treated with much more grace
Mhm.
than this.
Mhm.
So I was so humiliated. I was so shocked that this is allowed, that how is this allowed? How was I treated that way? And then, we get to our town after hours and hours as well, because there are roads that are for West Bankers and roads that are for other people. And the roads assigned to West Bankers are not, they don't have the proper infrastructure. Some of them are actually really dangerous, on the side of a hill, just a two-way, and there aren't any railings. So any little, you may veer easily into like a valley, so it was very
Just
scary.
pray really hard.
Yeah, just pray
Just
really
pray
hard,
really
and
hard.
and I was like, what's going on? This is very scary. And then we get to our town, and I noticed that, after all of this, I noticed all the houses are clean, they're organized. And that was when I learned one of the many lessons, that whatever you throw at Palestinians, they will always try to make the best out of the situation they're in. So even in Gaza, with blockade and everything that was happening to them, you see videos from prior to the war. They had a
Mhm.
pretty house, nice
Mm.
stuff, nice
Yeah,
decorations.
they have to keep creating a refuge. They have to keep
Yes,
creating that refuge within all the chaos is not even the right word, but
all these
within
injustices and all this
yeah.
daily pain and suffering.
Hmm.
The homes are very, very important. And that's why also one of the ways that they punish, if somebody from, a sibling did something that is against what Israel deems acceptable, they don't just punish the sibling, they come and punish the entire family, and they take down the house, and it's like collective punishment for the entire family. And they come after the house because they know that the home is very, very, very important. It's the only
Hmm.
sanctuary that they have. And so, the next day, my mom told me, like, go to a shack nearby and get some sweets for your brother and sisters. It took me many years down the line to realize that she was just trying to show me that I could walk there safely, and feel that I'm amongst my people. And even if I weren't from there, I'm going to be very, very safe. So I went to the shack. And when I entered, there was an old man. And once I entered, he's like, "Oh, who are you?" And I'm like, I said my name, Salam Nagam. And he's like, "Whose daughter are you? Like, who are your parents?" So I said my father's name and my mother's name without even saying the family name. And my parents are regular people. We're not celebrities. And he's like, "Oh my God, they are back. Welcome back home."
Mm.
And he was so happy, and his face lit up,
Mhm.
and he's like, "Take whatever you want from my shop for free." And I looked around, and, like, he knows where my parents live, and he
Mhm.
knows obviously that they have the means, and yet he was so generous that,
Mhm.
just take whatever you want from my
Mhm.
shop. I'm so happy you're home. And just like your experience of that man that came and wanted to gift you just the
Mhm.
view of it all,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
because,
and so much more. Same thing. We had our guide, our driver, who was, well, yeah, he actually, I think he must have had like three jobs. I think most Palestinians in the West Bank have three jobs
just
to
to make ends
survive,
meet.
just to make
Yes.
ends meet. And even with all of that, I'm not even going to. I remember somebody telling me they barely scraped together $800 a month. But I remember he went and bought us shawarma, and we were, I don't know how many of us were in the car, and we were all trying to pay, and I just looked at him and I'm like, I can't believe you're going out buying us shawarma, like, yeah, it's the
Yeah.
generosity
it they're
it's
they're they
incredible.
are they are very generous. And again, that visit for me changed me forever, because when I left, I was a different person, a lot of things made sense, stories that I heard from my parents. And it was there and then that I thought, I am going to always try to use my voice and use the freedom that I have outside to always try to amplify their voices and keep on, talking about it. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
my family in West Bank.
And do you get to see them, like your cousins?
No, no.
No, no.
Sometimes, a few of them they keep on trying to go to the crossing and, to go to Jordan so that, they come to us, not we go to them.
Hmm. And
Sometimes it works.
what does that entail, like logistics wise and paper, like
So,
is it
so, so like how I saw the crossing from 1998, like right now, there are much more advanced machinery. I'm sure they have things that look down inside their bones, to just they put them through stuff. And again, it takes hours and hours and hours and lots of fees here and there and buses and it's still very, very humiliating. And sometimes you're allowed, sometimes you're not. I'm sure there's people that I follow on social media. There's one lady that is a Westerner married to a Palestinian and lives in Ramallah. And she recently, went on that trip because she didn't want to be separated from her family, like from her husband and her kids. She wanted to go with them.
hmm
So she has to endure it too. She doesn't get any special
hmm
treatment because she's
treatment? Yeah,
American.
yeah.
And she spoke about
Hmm.
how hard, and if they want to travel anywhere else in the world, they have to go through this process and get to Jordan, and then in
Hmm.
Jordan, from that
And
airport, head somewhere wherever
yep.
they need to go.
And something I found out as well from a Palestinian from Nablus, because she studied in American University of Beirut, they won't even let you take your own car across
Yes.
the border.
No, 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 there's no
So they
cars.
expect you to
No.
take public transport or the bus. But anyway, again, another way of making it really difficult or almost impossible because it's expensive for people
Yes.
to cross the border. So that was something else that I found out. And then again, Westerners who are married to Palestinians and live in the West Bank, um,
They get punished.
well, no,
They
it's
get the same
mind-boggling.
punishment.
If you have babies, it's very difficult to get your babies registered, and obviously you cannot do it in Israel. But if you, for instance, what I found out from one family who had citizenship in Jerusalem, and the man that I met, he was actually studying to become a doctor. So, and he obviously you have better access in Jerusalem to do that. Um, Originally, they were from Ramallah, but if they actually lived in Ramallah, they would lose access to Jerusalem. So Palestinians always have to make this decision. Okay, where is it better for me to live? How is it easier for me to move around? And then I was told that they come and they do searches in your home. They check your trash.
Oh,
They
yeah,
check
yeah,
if your
yeah.
toothpaste has been used. They know exactly how many windows are in your home. And I remember when I came back from my travels, very few people actually asked me what it was like in Palestine. Very few. But the ones that did, when they asked me, I just remember looking at them and telling them, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Like it was like watching a movie. It's
Yeah,
like watching these exaggerated Hollywood movies. That is
yeah,
exactly what
it
it's
is like
like.
that.
And
It is, it
and
is, it is like that.
yeah, yeah. So it was again just every day I was finding out something new. Then they also make it impossible if you're married to like I met a guy, he was married to a German woman. They make it really hard for the Westerner to keep her paperwork there. So, and it keeps changing all the time. So you have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
really
yeah,
keep up
yeah.
with it, even if they have children there. So at any given time, the Westerner cannot be outside of the country for too long, or they might
Yes,
actually
absolutely.
separate the couples permanently.
Yeah,
So there are so many layers that it's
yeah.
just impossible to know unless you actually go. And something that you touched up on, your your desire to keep sharing these stories, to let people on the outside know. Every Palestinian that I spoke with when I was there, I kept asking, what can we do on the outside to help? Because you feel incredibly helpless.
Yes.
Of course, we're all experiencing guilt because we are Palestinian, but we're not there living under those conditions.
Yes.
And every single one said, all we want is for you to keep talking. Just don't stop talking about us.
And don't forget about us.
Yeah,
They
that
always say,
was
don't
it.
forget about us.
That was it, you know. There was no, I never felt any resentment.
No, no,
You
no.
know, I never felt any, in my own mind, my judgmental part, I was ready to kind of be received in this way, like, oh, you live outside, you have no idea what it's like for us. I was prepared for that, and it was I got the complete opposite of that.
No, they're actually, because they've been so closed off from the world,
Hmm.
because of all these like rules and things that they make it so hard for them. Maybe one nice outcome of it is they're very innocent. They haven't been tainted. Out here in the world, people are a little bit more selfish. They're a little bit more, me, 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 me. Like this world is so fast paced. We need to be places. We
Hmm.
need to be,
Hmm.
competing. There's a lot of competition.
Hmm.
Whereas for them, no, it's all about like community. We want everybody to come back. It's just like a parent that like wants their home to always be full. They actually feel so bad for the Palestinians that are not allowed to come back with everything that they're going
Hmm.
through. They
Hmm.
feel so bad that, those ones
Hmm.
are outside and they are unable to come back and come visit us and come hang with us. And they actually know a lot, each one within their families. They know a lot about us than we do about them, and they know who is, married to who and who's they know everything. Whereas in our communities, wherever you may be in the world, people are from all over, and it's not the same. It's not as much of a community and all this love.
Yes, but to a certain extent, because I'll share a quick story. When I was getting married, my ex-husband now, he had to go renew his passport. He's Canadian, and he went to renew his passport, and the immigration officer behind the counter happened to be a Palestinian Canadian. So of course, we were engaged and really excited to get married. We were much younger at the time, and my ex-husband was like, "Oh, you're Palestinian. I'm marrying a Palestinian." And right away he was like, "Which family is she from?" And he was like, "Dajani." And he's like, "Oh my goodness, I know this family. They're such a well-known family."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he called me from Canada, and he's like, he knew your family. And I started laughing because it's very difficult for other people to understand. But
Yeah,
in a
like
way, we still are very tribal. And I remember growing up, every time I would want to hang out with a friend, my dad would always be like, which family is this person from? And I used to think he was insane. I'm like, why are you asking me like which family this person is from? But obviously now I get it.
it's
And Naham, um, being part of the diaspora, and I think obviously in that there's automatic displacement and disbursement.
yes, of course.
And I know there's a lot of impact from that. Like, what are some of those impacts that affected your family? For instance, for me, there were hindrances. So obviously language is one of them because you have to grow up integrating into a different language. And so even though I speak, I call it broken Arabic, I do get embarrassed a lot of the time not being able to speak that so fluently. Also, another hindrance is I know how close my family is, and the majority of them are in Jordan, but I didn't grow up in Jordan. So I actually don't know my family that well because you don't see them that often. So, I thought about that for a long time. Everything that I go on is by stories. And what I actually find amazing is that, because, Friday is our holy day.
Yeah.
And my father every Friday will sit down and call his siblings and bless you and talk to his
Thank you.
siblings. And it's quite remarkable that he still does that at his age of 80. But
God
I
bless
think
you.
about that a lot is I don't have that connection, and that is an impact of the disbursement. So I'm just curious what it
Yeah.
was like for you and your family.
For me and my family, because we have a lot of family in West Bank. I also have family in Jordan. Um, and okay, so with my family and being in the diaspora, for my family, they chose to always share a lot of what they experienced. But when they shared it like, yeah, this happened to my sibling. They took my sibling when he was in middle school, and he was tortured. Or you hear just very odd stories, but they were said in such uh, an like it's normal. And when you're a child, you think that this is normal for whatever is happening in your home, no matter what it is, or whatever is being said in your house, that this is what everybody else,
Mhm.
experiences. So for me, when I, speak to others and other communities and other I started to realize that, no, this is not normal. This is I'm different, and even sometimes with fellow Palestinians who, let's say, like yourself, from 1948, and then most of the family is in Jordan or some other country, and your parents had a different path that got them to the diaspora than my parents' path. So to me, I always felt different, that my experiences are very, very intense. And it was a shocker for me when I realized that, not everybody has the same experience that my
Mhm.
parents did, and what I have been exposed to. Not everybody, and especially not every type of Palestinian had my same, what I got to see, what I got to hear.
Yeah. And I know for me, growing up somehow, and not because anyone else made me feel that way, but as you're trying to find your own identity in your teens and your 20s, somehow I felt less than Palestinian, A, because of the language, B, because I never got to go. And not it's not like we didn't go because we didn't want to go. It's because
Yeah, it's you
there
weren't
wasn't
you
a
weren't
choice.
allowed.
That
Yeah,
wasn't allowed. So there I people often miss that point
yeah,
that
it's just like
we didn't have the choice to go back,
we're trying.
we're trying. But now, and I think it's a mixture of both, obviously being older and I have a much deeper sense of who I am and what my essence is. But also, sadly, this horror that's happened in Gaza, I think, has really shown me in my bones what it means to be Palestinian. And I'm so incredibly proud to have that in my blood and to share that in my daughter's blood and DNA as well. Um, and I go to demonstrations quite often. I have the blessing of living in Ireland, and my community. There are many communities around the country. Is very active. My community is very active, and every single time I'm at a protest, I see all the people that gather from every single background you can think of. Um, And how beautiful it is to see everyone come together in that way.
Yes,
Solidarity
because
is really important when people think that there's nothing that they can do. Just standing in solidarity is
is
immense.
very is yeah,
It's
and they
immense.
don't know how much of an impact it makes, but it's all about humanity and
Hmm.
love and seeing that, these people are people who are in pain.
Hmm.
The ones in the diaspora are in a certain type of pain. The ones
Hmm.
inside are, that's a whole other level of different
Hmm.
types of pains.
Hmm.
So that's something that, for me, that's how I, that I for how I am affected within, like, growing up. That was one of them that I felt that different. And then also, because I was living in a very diverse community, people were coming from all over the world. It was very international. I started to see that, and myself included, that people will judge an entire people, based on that one experience that they have, or the relationship that they have with that one person. So, you would think that all Americans are X because you had that one American friend, and, you had an amazing experience. So all Americans are nice, or you didn't have a good experience. So all Americans are not nice.
Hmm.
And that goes for, the
Hmm.
other nationalities. And then, as you grow up and you start to meet others from within the ones that you made a, generalization about, that, no, hold on, they're different.
Hmm.
Or you visit their country, you have the chance to visit, to go to travel to, the UK, or travel to like an Arab country, and you get to meet others and see their country and see their culture, and you get that chance to, make up a different idea. But for us as Palestinians, people can't go. And even if they were to visit, Israel, Palestinians are hidden behind a wall. They, it's like, you tuck them away in your room, and no one can have access to that. And if they were to go, you're going to tell them, like, as you said, it's very scary, don't go, they're very dangerous.
Hmm.
So no one is going to be able to meet them and see them for who
Hmm.
they are. So
Hmm.
I felt that I had the responsibility of, representing, uh, Palestinians. Each one of us is an ambassador, for our people. And with that comes also, like, it's a big responsibility. You're
Hmm.
always, you're always trying to show your best traits and put your best
Hmm.
foot forward. So as when people, have that interaction with you, they think of your, the extended, all the other Palestinians, and think, oh, we have a very nice impression of what is, a Palestinian. And, but we are like all other people of the world. We have good people, we have bad people, we have traitors, we have patriots.
Yeah,
We
we're
have
people.
normal, yeah, we have
We are
normal
people.
human traits. But
Yes, we have
because of our
dysfunctional
plight,
families.
yeah, we have everything. But because
Mhm.
of our plight, we cannot afford to have, the bad
Mhm.
apples. And let me give you an example that is, fitting for today, just so as people understand what it means that we can't afford it. So, what's happening in Gaza, you will have people that take advantage, from outside Gaza, and they could be Palestinian or not, like, and pretend they are in Gaza, and maybe, do something just like all the other countries in the world. There's scams and there's things happening. But if someone were to do that, the hurt that it will cause to the entire people of Gaza who are in need of that help would be so immense and would be so catastrophic for them. So it's a big responsibility
Mm-hmm.
that, we have to
Mm-hmm.
ensure that that every person that is asking for help, like that we have verified, that we are sure that we are, because we don't want anything to go wrong,
Mm-hmm.
so as it does not jeopardize our people as a whole, people that have just been introduced to Palestinians and their plight. We don't want
Right.
them to see something that is wrong, and make an impression about all Palestinians. So, but because of our plight, we have more good than we do have, the few ones here and there. So for me, being in the diaspora, how that affected me, I always carry that, and take it very seriously. I'm self-appointed, that
Like
I
many of us.
always, yeah, we appoint ourselves,
I
and
think for a lot of us, it just burns through us.
yeah, and you said, like, that blood we carry, it's
Yeah,
potent, it's
yeah,
it's
and
powerful.
to be honest, Naham, also, I know when I moved to the West, obviously trying to integrate into that culture, I grew up in the Arab world, very international, very multicultural, very diverse. So you'd go to a party, or I taught there as well as a school teacher. You have a classroom, there's like 14 different nationalities in one
If not
classroom
more, yeah.
at a party. So it wasn't really until the West that my identity kept coming up. And um, just I wanted to integrate. And back then, we didn't have social media. We didn't have smartphones, and of course, um, that's when I started to understand the media and the
Yeah.
propaganda,
Yes.
and how people in that part of the world actually don't know what's going on. And everyone had this like negative image of the Middle East. Like I've been told many times, aren't you just so glad to get out of there? And I would be like, why? I love it,
No,
you
I
know?
love it. I know. It's
I grew up on the
amazing.
beach, you know? Like,
It's
um, and but I did stay quiet a lot because it makes people really uncomfortable, and I never wanted to be that source of discomfort.
yes,
And a lot of the time, you could see in people's eyes they would just switch off. They weren't
yes,
interested. And I was young. I didn't know how to articulate myself the way that I do now. But what I realize now as an adult, even in staying quiet, that is also doing a disservice, because
yes,
then we are just enabling, and that is of no service to humanity.
yes, and it's a responsibility to keep speaking, because I want to share with you something that stems from like a little story, something that
Mhm.
stems from being the ambassador,
Mhm.
or
Please do. Mhm.
trying to be that, and it gives me, I love this, and it really gave me a lot of fuel this past year. So right around the time when we started to see people marching around the world for Palestine after October, um,
And can I say, for the first time in 76 years, we've seen this.
yes, and that many. So, right around that time, I posted something on social media for Palestine, and a friend of mine that I haven't seen in years, she's actually from the UK. She leaves a comment on my post, and she was like, Nagam, I want to tell you that I remember when we were at a friend's birthday at a club nearly 20 years ago, and you were telling me about Palestine. And at the moment, as I was reading, I'm like, oh my God, I was at a party, and I was talking to my UK, a friend from the UK, about Palestine. And she's
Anyone that will
like,
listen, right?
yeah,
Anyone
yeah.
that
I'm
will
just like,
listen.
let me tell
Okay.
you, and she continues, and she says, at the time, I was so shocked at how little I knew. So I educated myself, and now I'm marching in Cardiff for Palestine with my daughters. and that I am thinking of you
I just got
as I
goosebumps.
am marching. So to me, I was just like that one person that I spoke to at a party
Mhm.
so many years ago. And I had completely, like, I remember we went to that party. I remember she was still dating her husband. I was married. But I don't remember what we spoke about. And, clearly I had told her something about Palestine
Mhm.
and that pushed her to want to go and educate herself. And
Mhm.
so many years later, she was marching and thinking of me, and I haven't seen her in so long. So to me, these when we speak about Palestine, it's that, it resonates. It may be not now, maybe later, but it will resonate. So,
And that's all
I
it,
liken it,
that's it. It's just that one person
that
that's
one person. It's like
that's willing, that's
yeah, and it's
willing.
like you're for me, I felt like when she left that message, she had no idea how
Mhm.
much fuel she gave me. That's, in that moment where I'm feeling
Mhm.
hopeless, when I'm seeing so much pain and suffering and the things that we're seeing on social media. Um and she gave me that and I was just like, all right, let's
Yeah,
go.
and I want to say it's not like we all have this expectation for people to do this. So it's when we
No,
actually see it and feel it, that's the part that wants to make your heart explode,
I
because it's
never
not like we sit
ever.
here and have that expectation. I don't have that expectation. Of course, it's wonderful when you see it, but um and I've heard a lot of stories too from here. People in Palestine are seeing us march. They are seeing us. So even though the governments are failing us right now, they know that not everyone has given up on them. And that's huge. That
Yes,
is really
and
huge, because that, to use your term, that fuels them to keep
to keep
going.
going, absolutely. And also for them, like I can speak about West Bank. In West Bank, they are not allowed to like posts, share posts. I do know extended family that at the beginning of all this shared one Facebook post about what was happening, and they were taken until
Mhm.
now. They're
Yes,
still not
in prison.
there.
And I've heard a lot of stories like that. Likewise, also, if any Israelis are liking or speaking up against what's going on right now, they're
They're
also getting
they're
arrested or
yes,
losing their
yes,
jobs, or so
yes.
it's on both sides. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, but like for me, I think it comes down to, the way I was raised, the stories I heard from my parents that I thought were normal. Being raised Palestinian,
Mhm.
because, we're raised with Palestinian values and with the
Mhm.
things that our parents instill in us. So, because of that, I came to the conclusion that I always have to be speaking about Palestine.
Mhm. I'm so glad that you're here
I'm glad that you're
doing
here
just
too.
that.
And
Okay,
you're giving
Naham.
me this chance. Yeah.
No, thank you so much for not just being here, but being here with such care. What does a liberated Palestine look like to you, Naham?
Okay. I when I visualize a free Palestine, I have my, I'm sure each one of us has their version and how they see it. But I always like
Mhm.
to stress that, how I envision it, I would give that up um, in a heartbeat, because I feel like the on the people that are in the line of fire, or the ones that were, given the refugee status generation after generation, are the ones that get to really have a say in what a liberated Palestine is. But from my perspective, I want it to be like one land for everyone, a model for coexistence, a place where, people are free and they practice their faith, knowing that in this land, whatever faith you come from, you have, an equal share, and no one has more claim over the other, depending on their faith. Um, what gives me a lot of sadness is because of what's happening, my version of a liberated Palestine becomes further and further away, because there's more atrocities and more things, and I can see it, but can a mother or a father, or that have lost a child, or a child that has lost parents or siblings over there, be truly able to, get past it? Am I being realistic? So my version is, this is how it is. And in the diaspora, um, all of us are there to, hold them and let them work through their pain and ensure that their trauma and their pain manifests into them becoming like South Africa, the South Africa of the world, where they never allow it for anyone. And I hope that no other people ever experience what our people are experiencing, and for how long they have experienced it, and not allow anybody to use our traumas and our stories to justify atrocities in the name of our traumas. So for me, this is how I visualize it. I visualize all the work that we are doing right now as planting seeds. And plants take time, and we're going to reap the crop of everything that we are doing, and that is going to help towards a liberated Palestine that is a place for everyone in the world, to come and visit and practice and know that it's just over there. And one of the things that gives me so much you know uh, hope, and led me to visualize such a Palestine, was, it's a personal story that I'm going to share publicly, that I don't, I may share it with a very, very close friend, but I feel like it's fitting that I share it. My father-in-law's mother was in Jaffa in 1948, and she was pregnant with him, with my father-in-law, and she was due end of May. And early May, she had a toddler. In early May, her husband was worried, the violence was escalating and all these things were happening, and she's pregnant and very vulnerable to the gangs that were gonna come. So he's like, how about, and she had a relative, a very, like, someone who's close in Lebanon. So he told her, how about you go there for a few days, and I will ensure that we go and we take care of these gangs. Just go to Lebanon, and you'll come back. And if you deliver there, at least I know that you are safe until until all of this is sorted. So she got on a boat with her toddler, and on the way, because she's going to the unknown, and she's just left her partner, her husband, and his fate is unknown. Because of all the fear and the stress, she gave birth on the boat. And when she reached the shores of Lebanon, there were, many different parties, people, and parties, like official parties, that were helping all these people coming from Palestine, and no one was understanding, like, what's happening, like, why are people, suddenly coming and arriving on boats, and they look very sad and very. So one of the parties had a name that's, ironically translates to rescue, but it's not a name that you would name a person. It's and for her, like they came, they cut the umbilical cord, they took her and her newborn baby and her toddler to the hospital, and she was so grateful, and named her son, my father-in-law, after their name. And yeah, later her husband came, and she never went home. She never went back to her house. But she raised her kids with so much love and so much grace and compassion that, when my father-in-law grew up, he actually gave back so much to the Palestinian community and non-Palestinians. He chose love and compassion, and not, to be poisoned and angry at what had happened to his mother and how she died, lived the rest of her life there, and never went back to her home, and somebody moved into her house, like, and then they took everything from them. So she didn't allow it to poison their hearts. So I named my son after his name to honor him, and to also honor this woman, because you've given birth, I've given birth. We know how much care and love and stability we need during this, while we're ushering a new soul into the world.
And it's a rite of
Um,
passage, right? It's
yeah,
very
and
sacred.
it's very sacred, and it's an experience that, yes, we've done it since the beginning of time, but it's something that is that should at least be done with no fear, or on land, on land. So, while there's a lot of sadness and trauma and pain in the stories that we share, and the stories that I grew up with, they're little subtle things like, growing up and seeing my mom always sleep with a very bright light. And, I come to her and I ask her, like, you know, why, and much later in life, like, why you shouldn't, it's not good for your melatonin. And, like, in my millennial, way of thinking. And she would tell me something like, "Oh, I used to sleep with the light on," and innocently and calmly, and not like, she's very serious and very innocent about it. And she would say things like, "I used to sleep in the dark, but there was this one night when I was 10, and I woke up in the dark, and I found soldiers in my room with me and my sisters. It was one of those night raids. And ever since, I find it very hard to sleep, in the dark." And then, I would think back and say, "Oh, my mom never put blackouts for us. We always had some sort of light from the street."
Mm.
My dad always wanted to make her feel very comfortable, and he had to sleep in that bright light, um,
Mm.
every night. So we come with a lot of our,
Mhm.
they grew up with all of this and endured all of this,
You
but
bring up a
yet,
really good point, and they don't talk about a lot of it.
yeah, they don't. And, like, there's a lot of
Mm.
things that I learned much later on. Or let's say, she has once, some students in her class went on a march, and it was during the years where they were not allowed to raise to have a Palestinian flag.
Mhm.
So, afterwards, they were 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. And then the next day, the soldiers come and take all of them, and they do interrogations. And, were you there? Were you not there? Did you
Mhm.
touch the flag? Did you not touch the flag? And for my mom at the time, the soldier, or the guy that was interrogating, and because she wasn't there, he told her things that, if you ever take part, this will happen to you. And at the time, she said, "I didn't know what the meaning of the words were, but I got the gist that it was something very dangerous and very bad."
Mhm.
And she's like,
Mhm.
later on, when she was much older, she discovered that it was, he was threatening her with sexual violence,
Mhm.
if she ever touched a Palestinian flag or took part. In a march.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of traumas and pains and things that are very painful, and yet we are a people that love life if we are allowed and given the chance to live it. Any moment of joy we seize, We like to celebrate one another. We love to celebrate, when someone does well in their education, because we know it's their chance to be given a chance in the world. Um,
And I just
and
want to
we,
quickly bring up here this statistic really woke me up. 98 or 99% of Palestinians,
99%.
female and male, are educated.
Yes, and stress on female and male. And that's also another thing, like the way we're raised, that female and male, that we all get the equal opportunities. And sometimes there's even more focus on the females, because they usher the new
Mhm.
generation, and both have to be educated, because both are raising the
Yeah.
children, and both are
Yep.
continuing
Yeah.
our path. We
And
are
this is
resilient.
under occupation, so we
Yes.
have to remember that a lot of these students that go to school often have to pass checkpoints on a daily basis for their
And
entire lives.
so for us, like, we love our education, and we love to seize every chance we get to experience joy and to celebrate, be it a
Mhm.
wedding or anything. It's extremely big, because we know how precious life is, and
Mhm.
how short it can be, and how much can be taken from it. And so we are resilient, we are brave, we love our holy land, whether we are living on it or we have been raised so far away from it. We love all our people, all
Mhm.
of them, different walks, different, religions. We love all of them. And no matter where we are in the world, we are all trying different things, anything and everything, just to be able to help in any shape, way, or form. So this is what fuels and drives things for us when, we dream of freedom and visualize a freedom, and when we say free Palestine.
Mhm. May it be so.
May it be so. Amen.
May it be so. Nahum, I could talk to you forever.
Yes.
And I know that as much as you're sharing and I'm sharing in little snippets, that's what they are, little trailers of what it means to be a Palestinian. We can never get the full extent of what we want to share into one conversation, because
It's so
it's
many.
almost a century of occupation. So I do want to thank you for all your time, all the insight that you have given us, all the personal stories that you have shared.
I
Um, I know how important that is for you with your advocate and ambassador part, but also all of us that are sharing. It can come with consequences,
absolutely.
and I want to say that out loud because, for instance, I know for me sharing, I know it. Even if I just want to go and visit Palestine, it could impact my getting in.
Yes, it
So we
might.
don't do this lightly. This
Yes.
is the fire within us, um, to speak up for the people who do not have that possibility right now.
And whose voices are always muffled or
Mhm.
or silenced. So
Mhm.
yes, I hope, we pray and hope, and we
Mhm.
keep on going, and we keep on doing, and
Mhm.
we're planting all these seeds. Takes time for a crop to ripen.
Mhm.
But right now we've planted a lot of new seeds around the world, and we'll all, I hope, see a free Palestine for everybody, for
For
everyone,
for
for
the benefit
everybody.
of all, for the benefit
Yes.
of all.
Yes.
Nahum, thank you, and I hope you have a lovely night.
Thank you to you too. Thank you for having me. Bye.